The great chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room Senator Ben Crawford had ever seen. It stretched upward for hundreds of meters, filled with floating platforms where representatives from over 200 species sat and watched. Lights of every color glowed from different sections, each one matching the visual needs of whatever alien race occupied that space. Crawford stood alone on the small platform reserved for humanity. It was positioned near the bottom of the chamber, far from the center where important species sat. This placement was no accident. For 50 years, Earth had been treated as a minor member of this great assembly. They were tolerated, but never respected. Today, Crawford hoped to change that. High Chancellor Vorath sat at the very center of the chamber on a massive throne made of some dark metal. He was a Drenari, a species known for their tall bodies and gray skin. His 4 eyes looked down at Crawford with obvious boredom. The Drenari had led the council for 3 centuries, and they considered themselves the natural rulers of the galaxy. Crawford activated his translator device and began to speak. His voice echoed through the chamber as the machines converted his words into hundreds of different languages at once. "Honored members of the council," he said, "I come before you today to present evidence of terrible crimes. The Vecthar Empire has been attacking human colonies in the Outer Rim territories. In the past 6 months, they have killed more than 15,000 of our people." He pressed a button on his control pad, and images appeared in the air above him. They showed burning cities, destroyed homes, and bodies lying in the streets. The pictures were hard to look at, but Crawford forced himself to keep his eyes forward. "These attacks were not accidents," he continued. "They were planned military operations. The Vecthar came with warships and soldiers. They killed everyone they could find, including children. We have recordings of their commanders giving orders to show no mercy." The chamber was quiet for a moment. Then High Chancellor Vorath let out a sound that the translator turned into a laugh. "Senator Crawford," Vorath said, his voice dripping with amusement. "Humans are always so dramatic. These incidents you describe were likely misunderstandings. Perhaps your colonists provoked the Vecthar in some way." Crawford felt his hands tighten into fists, but he kept his voice calm. "With respect, Chancellor, there is no misunderstanding. I have brought communication records showing the Vecthar planned these attacks weeks in advance. They specifically targeted civilian populations." "Even if what you say is true," Vorath replied, "what do you expect the Council to do about it? The Vecthar are a powerful empire. They have been members of this body for over 1,000 years. Humanity has been here for merely 50. You are asking us to take your side against a far more important species." Several other council members made sounds of agreement. Crawford noticed that the Vecthar representative, a large creature covered in red scales, was watching him with what looked like a smile. "I am asking for justice," Crawford said. "The council exists to maintain peace between species. If one member attacks another without cause, there must be consequences." Vorath waved one of his long hands dismissively. "The council has reviewed the situation and found insufficient evidence to take action. Perhaps your colonies were located in disputed territory. Perhaps your people fired first and the Vecthar simply defended themselves." "That is a lie," Crawford said, his voice harder now. "And you know it." The chamber went silent. No one spoke to the High Chancellor that way. Vorath leaned forward on his throne, his 4 eyes narrowing. "Be careful, human. Your species exists in this galaxy because we allow it. You were evaluated 50 years ago and classified as a Tier 7 civilization. That means you are barely capable of traveling between stars. You have no significant military power, no advanced technology, and no allies of importance. You survive because you are not worth the trouble of destroying." Crawford stood very still. He had expected this response. In fact, he had counted on it. "So the council will do nothing," he said quietly. "The council has more important matters to discuss," Vorath replied. "My advice to humanity is simple. Surrender the contested colonies to the Vecthar and accept whatever terms they offer. It will be easier for everyone." The Vecthar representative made a harsh sound that might have been laughter. Crawford looked around the chamber slowly. He saw hundreds of alien faces watching him. Some looked sympathetic, but most showed indifference or contempt. To them, humans were insects complaining about being stepped on. "I understand," Crawford said finally. "The Council has made its position clear." "Good," Vorath said. "Then we can move on to more pressing business." "Before I go," Crawford continued, "I want to make something equally clear. Earth formally requested the Council's help in dealing with unprovoked attacks on our people. That request has been denied. Therefore, Earth will handle this matter on its own." Vorath laughed again, and this time many others joined him. "Handle it how? You have perhaps 30 warships in your entire fleet. The Vecthar have thousands. What exactly do you think you can do?" Crawford picked up his datapad and prepared to leave his platform. He paused and looked directly at the High Chancellor. "You classified humanity as Tier 7, he said. "You decided we were weak and primitive. You made that judgment 50 years ago and never bothered to look again. That was a mistake." "Is that a threat?" Vorath asked, still amused. "It is a fact," Crawford replied. "You have shown us what the Council truly is. A group of old empires that protect each other while the weak suffer. Earth wanted to be part of something better. Instead, we found this." He stepped off his platform and began walking toward the exit. Behind him, he could hear aliens talking and laughing. They thought he was foolish. They thought humanity would simply accept defeat. They had no idea what was coming. Ambassador Krixtal of the Zolvari caught Crawford's eye as he passed. Unlike the others, Krixtal was not laughing. The small, blue-skinned alien gave Crawford a slight nod, and there was something in his eyes that looked like concern. Crawford nodded back, but did not stop. There was nothing more to say here. As he reached the doors of the great chamber, his communication device vibrated silently against his wrist. He glanced down and saw a message from Admiral Diana Cole back on Earth. It contained only 4 words. "We are ready." Waiting, Crawford walked out of the chamber and did not look back. The Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. 50 years of patience was about to end. The dark side of Earth's moon held many secrets. The largest of these secrets was a military base that did not officially exist. It was buried deep beneath the lunar surface, hidden from every scanner and sensor that alien ships had ever pointed at the solar system. Commander Sam Harris stood in the main control room of this hidden base, watching screens that covered an entire wall. Each screen showed a different location across the solar system. And at each location, warships were waiting. Admiral Diana Cole stood beside him, her arms crossed over her chest. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had commanded Earth's Navy for 20 years, and she had spent every one of those years preparing for this moment. "The Council rejected our request," she said. "It was not a question." "They laughed at us," Harris replied. "Vorath told Crawford that we should surrender and accept whatever the Vecthar want." Cole nodded slowly. "Good. That means they have no idea what we are capable of." Harris turned to face her. "You really think this will work?" "It has to work," Cole said. "We have been hiding for 50 years, building in secret, training in the dark. If we do not act now, the Vecthar will keep killing our people until there is no one left to save." She walked to one of the screens and pointed at the ships displayed there. They were unlike any vessels the galaxy had seen before, sleek and angular, painted in dark colors that made them hard to see against the blackness of space. 240 ships, Cole said, each one carrying weapons that the Council does not know exist. Shields that can stop anything the Vecthar can throw at us. Engines that can cross the galaxy in days instead of weeks. Harris looked at the fleet with mixed feelings. He was proud of what humanity had built, but he also knew that using these ships would change everything. Earth would never be able to hide again. "Why did we hide for so long?" he asked. "If we had this power, why did we pretend to be weak?" Cole sighed. "Because of what the Council does to species they consider threats. Do you remember the Cathani? They were a peaceful race, but they developed technology that worried the Council. So the Council destroyed them, bombed their homeworld until nothing was left alive." "I read about that," Harris said quietly. Earth made a choice 50 years ago, Cole continued. We would join the Council, learn everything we could about the galaxy, and build our strength in secret. We would only reveal ourselves when we had no other choice. A door opened behind them, and Lieutenant Katie Morgan hurried into the room. She was young, with dark hair and a serious expression. As the fleet's main communication officer, she was responsible for monitoring all signals coming into the solar system. Commander, she said, we just received a transmission from one of our spy satellites near Vecthar space. There has been another attack. Harris felt his stomach tighten. Where? New Montana colony, Morgan replied. The Vecthar sent a full invasion force, 12 warships and several troop transports. She hesitated, and Harris could see that whatever came next was bad. Tell me, he said. The colony had a population of 30,000 people, Morgan said. Our satellite captured footage of the attack. The Vecthar did not just raid this time. They occupied the entire colony. They rounded up the survivors and loaded them onto transport ships. Prisoners? Cole asked. Slaves, Morgan said, her voice tight with anger. We intercepted Vecthar communications. They are taking our people to be sold. There were at least 6,000 children in that colony. The room went very quiet. Harris walked to the main screen and pulled up the footage that Morgan had mentioned. It showed Vecthar soldiers marching through the streets of New Montana, dragging humans out of their homes. He saw families being separated. He saw people being beaten when they resisted. He saw a young mother screaming as soldiers took her child away. How long ago was this? He asked. 14 hours, Morgan replied. The transport ships are still in Vecthar space. They have not reached the slave markets yet. Harris looked at Admiral Cole. She met his eyes, and he saw cold fury there. Sound the fleet alarm, Cole said. Operation Silent Thunder begins now. Within minutes, the entire hidden base was alive with activity. Officers ran to their stations. Pilots rushed to their ships. Engines that had waited years to be used finally roared to life. Harris walked to his own ship, the Resolute. It was the flagship of the hidden fleet, and it would lead the attack. Captain Ryan Torres was already in the pilot seat when Harris arrived on the bridge. Course is set for Vecthar space, Torres said. Ready to jump on your order. Harris sat in the command chair and looked at the main screen. It showed the other ships of the fleet forming up around them. 240 vessels, each one carrying the anger of an entire species. His communication panel lit up with an incoming signal. It was marked as diplomatic priority, which meant it came from outside the solar system. Open the channel, Harris said. A blue face appeared on his screen. It was Ambassador Crixtal of the Zulvari, the alien who had nodded to Crawford in the council chamber. Commander Harris, Crixtal said, I managed to obtain your contact codes through unofficial channels. I hope you will forgive the intrusion. What do you want, Ambassador? I want to warn you, Crixtal said. I know what you are planning. My people have suspected for years that Earth was hiding its true strength. I tell you now as a friend, if you attack the Vecthar, the Council will condemn you. They may even send fleets to punish you. Harris considered this for a moment. Ambassador, the Vecthar are taking our children to be sold as slaves. What would your people do in our position? Crixtal was silent for a long moment. We would do the same thing, he finally admitted. But we would still fail. The Vecthar are very powerful. Then let them be powerful, Harris said. And let them watch what happens when you hurt our people. He ended the transmission and turned to Torres. Take us out. The Resolute's engines fired, and the ship shot forward into the darkness. Behind it, 239 other ships followed. They accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible, and then vanished into the light of faster-than-light travel. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been playing a very long game, and the game was finally over. Warlord Draxon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fang, and watched his fleet prepare for the journey to the slave markets. 43,000 human prisoners waited in the transport ships behind him. It was the largest capture his people had ever made, and it would bring him great wealth and honor. His second-in-command, a younger Vecthar named Cross, approached with a datapad. "Warlord, all ships report ready to depart," Cross said. "The prisoners are secured. We should reach the markets in 3 days." Draxon smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Excellent. The humans brought good prices last time. This batch will make us rich." "There is one concern," Cross said carefully. "Some of the officers are worried about human retaliation. Their senator made threats at the council meeting." Draxon laughed loudly. "Human retaliation? With what? Their pathetic little fleet could not scratch our paint. They are weak, Cross. That is why they make such good slaves. Strong enough to work, too weak to fight back." Before Cross could respond, an alarm began screaming throughout the ship. Red lights flashed on every console. "What is happening?" Draxon demanded. An officer at the sensor station stared at his screens with wide eyes. "Warlord, we are detecting faster-than-light signatures. Many of them. They are appearing all around us." "How many?" The officer's voice shook when he answered. "Over 200. They will be here in seconds." Draxon felt something he had not felt in years. Fear. The first human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of the Crimson Fang. It was dark and angular. Nothing like the clumsy vessels humans were supposed to have. More ships appeared around it. Then more. They filled the space around the Vecthar fleet like predators surrounding their prey. "This is impossible," Draxon whispered. "Humans cannot build ships like that." The communication console crackled with an incoming transmission. Draxon nodded for his officer to open the channel. A human face appeared on the main screen. The man wore a military uniform and had cold, hard eyes. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. "This is Commander Sam Harris of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are holding our people prisoner. You will release them immediately and surrender your vessels. Any ship that resists will be destroyed." Draxon recovered some of his courage. He had 100 warships in his fleet. Surely that was enough to handle 200 human vessels. No matter how strange they looked. "Human," he growled. "You have made a fatal mistake coming here. Your little ships are no match for Vecthar weapons. I will destroy your fleet and add your crew to my collection of slaves. You have 60 seconds to begin surrendering." Harris replied. "This offer will not be repeated." Draxon cut the transmission and turned to his officers. "All ships, attack formation. Destroy them all." The Vecthar fleet moved with practice speed. They had conquered dozens of species over the centuries. They knew how to fight, but they had never fought humans. The first Vecthar ship to fire was the battlecruiser Endless Fury. It launched a full spread of plasma missiles at the nearest human vessel. The missiles flew true, tracking their target across thousands of kilometers. They never arrived. The human ship's shields glowed bright blue as every missile exploded harmlessly against them. Not one got through. Before the Endless Fury could fire again, 3 human ships returned fire. Their weapons were beams of pure white light that moved too fast to see. The beams cut through the battlecruiser's shields as if they did not exist. They sliced through armor like it was paper. In 3 seconds, the Endless Fury broke apart into burning pieces. Draxon watched in horror as his fleet began to die. Human ships moved through the Vecthar formation with impossible speed and precision. They seemed to know exactly where each Vecthar vessel would be before it got there. Their weapons fired again and again, each shot destroying or disabling a Vecthar ship. Captain Ryan Torres flew the Resolute through the heart of the battle. His hands moved across the controls with practiced ease, dodging enemy fire and returning shots with deadly accuracy. 3 more cruisers down, reported Lieutenant Morgan from her station. "The enemy flagship is trying to retreat. Do not let it escape," Harris ordered from the command chair. "That ship holds the prisoners." Torres pushed the Resolute faster, cutting off the Crimson Fang's escape route. 2 other human ships joined him, surrounding the Vecthar flagship. On the Crimson Fang, Draxon screamed orders at his crew. "More power to the engines. Break through their formation." "We cannot, Warlord," Cross replied, his voice shaking. "Our shields are failing. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. We have lost 60 ships in the last 4 minutes." Draxon looked at his tactical display. What he saw made his blood run cold. Over half his fleet was already destroyed or disabled. Human ships were now surrounding the transport vessels, but they were not firing on them. They were protecting the prisoners. The communication console lit up again. Draxon accepted the transmission. Commander Harris appeared once more. Warlord Draxon, your fleet is destroyed. You have lost. Surrender now, and your remaining crews will be treated as prisoners of war. Continue to fight, and you will all die. Draxon wanted to refuse. He wanted to fight to the last ship, the last soldier. But he looked at his screens and saw the truth. Human ships had completely surrounded his remaining vessels. Their weapons were powered up and ready. One command from Harris, and every Vecthar ship would be turned to dust. I surrender, Draxon said, the words tasting like poison. What are your terms? Your soldiers will lay down their weapons, Harris replied. Your ships will power down and prepare to be boarded. You will release all human prisoners immediately. Any attempt at resistance or harm to the prisoners will result in immediate destruction of the offending vessel. The battle had lasted 6 hours. In that time, the humans had destroyed or captured 92 Vecthar warships. They had not lost a single vessel of their own. As human marines boarded the transport ships, they found 43,000 prisoners waiting for rescue. Many of them cried when they saw human uniforms. The children who had been taken from New Montana rushed toward the soldiers, desperate for any comfort. Commander Harris watched the rescue operation from the Resolute's bridge. He felt no joy in the victory. He only felt tired and sad. Send a message to Earth, he told Morgan. Tell them the prisoners are safe. All of them. Morgan nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. Yes, Commander. Harris then turned to another officer. And send the battle footage to the Galactic Council. Every second of it. Let them see what happens when you hurt our people. Somewhere across the galaxy, High Chancellor Vorath was about to have a very bad day. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Over 200 species sat on their floating platforms, staring at the images that filled the air above them. The footage showed human ships tearing through the Vecthar fleet like fire through dry grass. It showed 92 warships burning and breaking apart in just 6 hours. High Chancellor Vorath sat on his throne, his 4 eyes wide with shock. Just days ago, he had laughed at humanity. He had called them weak and primitive. He had told their senator to surrender and accept slavery. Now he watched their ships do something that should have been impossible. This cannot be real, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Humans are Tier 7. They cannot have technology like this. Council Elder Sayla rose from her platform. She was ancient even by galactic standards, her body wrapped in robes that hid most of her features. She had not spoken in the council chamber for nearly 50 years. When she did speak now, every species fell silent to listen. I have seen this before, Sayla said, her voice old and tired. Long ago, before most of you were born, there was another species like the humans. They were quiet and patient. They hid their strength. The council at that time made the same mistake you made. They pushed too hard. They treated that species with contempt. Vorath leaned forward. What happened to them? They fought back, Sayla replied. They destroyed 3 empires in a single year. The council at that time begged for peace, and the species granted it, but only after making sure no one would ever threaten them again. She pointed at the images still playing above them. Humans move the same way. They fight the same way. They were never Tier 7. They were pretending, hiding their true power until they were forced to use it. The doors of the chamber opened, and Senator Ben Crawford walked in. He was alone, carrying no weapons, no guards. He did not look like a man who had just started a war. He looked like a man who had just finished one. Crawford stepped onto the human platform and looked around the chamber. His eyes stopped on Vorath. High Chancellor, he said calmly, I believe you have seen the footage. Vorath recovered some of his composure. He straightened on his throne and tried to look commanding. This is an outrage. Earth has committed an act of unprovoked aggression against a council member. You have destroyed nearly 100 Vecthar ships without authorization. Unprovoked? Crawford replied. The Vecthar killed 15,000 of our people. They were taking 40,000 more to be sold as slaves. Children were on those transport ships. We asked the council for help, and you told us to surrender. That does not give you the right to wage war, Vorath said. The council will not tolerate such behavior from a minor species. Crawford smiled, and there was no warmth in it. Minor species. You still think of us that way, even after what you just watched. Let me make something clear. Chancellor, Earth is no longer asking for permission. Earth is no longer begging for protection. We tried that, and you failed us. Ambassador Krixhall of the Zulvari spoke up from his platform. If I may, the senator has a point. The council knew about the Vecthar attacks. We had evidence of their crimes. We chose to do nothing because the Vecthar were powerful and humans were not. We were wrong. You dare side with these humans? Vorath demanded. I dare to speak the truth, Krixhall replied. The council's job is to protect all member species, not just the powerful ones. We failed in that duty. The humans simply did what we should have done. Several other species made sounds of agreement. Crawford noticed that the mood in the chamber was shifting. Some aliens still looked hostile, but many seemed uncertain. They were recalculating, trying to figure out what humanity's new power meant for them. Crawford pressed his advantage. We have brought evidence from the Vecthar transport ships. Recordings of their officers discussing which humans would bring the best prices at slave markets, plans for future raids on our colonies, communications showing that their attacks were ordered by the highest levels of Vecthar command. He activated his datapad, and new images appeared in the air. They showed Vecthar soldiers sorting human prisoners by age and health. They showed children being marked with numbers like animals. They showed families being torn apart while soldiers laughed. The chamber fell silent again. Even species that had supported the Vecthar looked disturbed. This is what you protected, Crawford said. This is what you allowed to happen, because humans were not important enough to save. Vorath stood from his throne, his body shaking with anger. Enough. Earth has violated galactic law. You attacked a council member without authorization. I call for an immediate vote on sanctions against humanity. We must show them that such behavior has consequences. He looked around the chamber, expecting support. He found very little. I warn you, Vorath continued, his voice rising. If the council does not act, I will gather allied fleets and deal with Earth myself. Their little victory against the Vecthar will mean nothing against the combined power of a dozen empires. Crawford did not look impressed. Chancellor, I should mention something. While our fleet was dealing with the Vecthar, we also moved defense platforms into position around every human colony. Additionally, there are currently 15 Earth warships stationed just outside the range of your sensors for this station. Vorath's face went pale. You are threatening the council itself? No, Crawford said. I am explaining reality. Earth has the power to defend itself now. We have the power to strike anyone who threatens us. We did not want this fight. We spent 50 years hoping we would never need to use what we built. But the Vecthar gave us no choice, and the council gave us no help. He looked around the chamber one final time. We are not asking for war. We are asking for the same thing we asked for before. Justice. Protection. A place in this galaxy where our people can live without fear of being murdered or enslaved. Give us that, and we will be the best ally you have ever had. Deny us that, and discover what else we have been hiding. The chamber erupted in noise as dozens of species began arguing at once. Vorath shouted for order, but no one was listening anymore. The council that had ignored humanity for 50 years was now falling apart because of them. Crawford stepped off his platform and walked toward the exit. He had said everything he needed to say. Now it was time to let the galaxy make its choice. As he passed Ambassador Krixhall, the blue-skinned alien reached out and touched his arm. That was well done, Krixhall said quietly. But Vorath will not forgive this. He will look for ways to hurt your people. Let him try, Crawford replied. We are done being victims. 3 weeks had passed since Earth's fleet destroyed the Vecthar invasion force. In that time, the galaxy had changed more than it had in centuries. The Galactic Council chamber was packed once again, but the arrangement was different now. The human platform had been moved higher, closer to the center. Several other species had moved their platforms closer to Earth's as well, forming a visible cluster of support. High Chancellor Vorath still sat on his throne, but he looked smaller somehow. Tired. Defeated. Senator Ben Crawford stood on the human platform, watching as Council Elder Sayla addressed the assembly. After reviewing all evidence, Sayla said, "This council finds the Vecthar Empire guilty of crimes against the human species. The attacks on human colonies were deliberate acts of war. The capture and planned sale of human prisoners constitutes slavery, which is forbidden under galactic law." She turned to face the section of the chamber where the Vecthar representative had once sat. That platform was empty now. The Vecthar Empire had withdrawn from the council rather than face judgment. Furthermore, Sayla continued, "This council recognizes that our failure to act against the Vecthar contributed to the suffering of human civilians. For this, I offer a formal apology on behalf of the assembly." Crawford nodded in acknowledgement but said nothing. Apologies were nice, but they would not bring back the 15,000 humans who had died. "There is one more matter to discuss," Sayla said. "The question of humanity's tier classification." Vorath finally spoke up. His voice was harsh and bitter. "Their classification is Tier 7. It has been Tier 7 for 50 years. One military victory does not change that." Ambassador Krixtal rose from his platform. "One military victory? Earth destroyed the third most powerful fleet in the galaxy in 6 hours without losing a single ship. Their technology is clearly advanced beyond anything we expected. I propose that humanity be elevated to Tier 2. The chamber exploded with noise. Tier 2 was reserved for the most powerful species in the galaxy. It meant having a permanent seat on the ruling council. It meant having a voice that could not be ignored. "This is madness," Vorath shouted. "We cannot reward aggression. If we elevate humanity now, we are telling every species that violence is the path to power." Sayla raised her hand for silence. The violence was not started by humans. They responded to attacks on their people. Every species in this chamber would have done the same. She looked at Vorath with cold eyes. "Unless you believe the council should protect slavers and punish those who rescue their own citizens." Vorath had no response to that. "We will vote," Sayla announced. "All species in favor of elevating humanity to Tier 2 status. Signal now." Platforms across the chamber lit up with colored lights. Crawford counted them quickly. 143 species voted in favor. Only 52 voted against. "The motion passes," Sayla declared. "From this day forward, humanity is recognized as a Tier 2 civilization, with all associated rights and responsibilities." Far away, on the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Sam Harris watched the vote through a live transmission. His crew cheered around him, but Harris did not feel like celebrating. "We won," said Captain Ryan Torres, clapping Harris on the shoulder. "We actually won, did we?" Harris replied quietly. "We showed the galaxy what we can do. Now every species out there is wondering if we might use that power against them. We have respect, but we also have fear." Lieutenant Katie Morgan approached them with a data pad. "Commander, we are receiving hundreds of messages from different species. Many of them are requesting diplomatic meetings. Some are asking about trade agreements. And 12 species have already asked about military alliances." Harris took the data pad and looked through the messages. She was right. Species that had ignored humanity for 50 years now wanted to be their friends. They saw which way the wind was blowing. "Tell them Earth is open to discussions," Harris said. "But make it clear that any alliance will be based on mutual respect, not fear. We did not fight the Vecthar to become bullies ourselves." Morgan nodded and walked away to send the responses. Harris turned to look out the main viewport. Stars filled the darkness, each one representing hundreds of worlds, millions of lives. Humanity was now a major power in that vast galaxy. The question was what they would do with that power. His communication panel lit up with a personal message from Admiral Diana Cole on Earth. "Sam," her voice said through the speaker. "The rescued prisoners have all been returned home. The children from New Montana are back with their families. I thought you would want to know." Harris closed his eyes for a moment. That, at least, was worth celebrating. "Thank you, Admiral," he replied. "It is good to hear." "There is one more thing," Cole continued. "The Council is requesting that you bring Warlord Draxon to their station. They want to put him on trial for war crimes." Harris looked across the bridge to where Draxon was being held under guard. The Vecthar warlord had been stripped of his weapons and armor. He looked small now. Nothing like the proud warrior who had planned to sell human children. "Tell the Council we will deliver him personally," Harris said. 2 days later, Harris walked into the great chamber of the Galactic Council with Draxon in chains beside him. The warlord was forced to walk past platforms of species he had once considered inferior. Many of them stared at him with hatred. Crawford met Harris at the center of the chamber. The two men shook hands while cameras from 100 worlds recorded the moment. "You did well, Commander," Crawford said. "I did what needed to be done," Harris replied. "What happens now?" Crawford looked around the chamber. He saw old empires forced to share power with new ones. He saw species reconsidering alliances that had lasted centuries. He saw a galaxy that would never be quite the same. "Now we build something better," Crawford said. "We showed the galaxy what happens when you hurt our people. But we also need to show them what happens when you help our people. Fear alone will not keep us safe. We need real allies. Real partnerships." Harris nodded. He understood. Power without purpose was just another form of tyranny. Later that evening, Harris returned to Earth. He did not go to any celebration or ceremony. Instead, he went to a small memorial garden that had been built for the victims of the Vecthar attacks. 15,000 names were carved into stone walls that surrounded a quiet pool of water. He stood there alone, reading names he had never known, thinking about lives that had been cut short. The galaxy had spent 50 years underestimating humanity. They had mistaken patience for weakness, silence for submission, and peace for inability to wage war. They had learned the truth in fire and destruction. But Harris hoped they would also learn something else, that humanity had not fought for power or glory. They had fought because no one else would protect their people. They had fought because some things were worth any price. He placed his hand on the cold stone of the memorial and made a silent promise. This would never happen again. Humanity would be strong enough to protect everyone who needed protection, not just their own. And if the galaxy ever forgot that lesson, Earth would be ready to teach it again.